On the phone, we have the newest member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, former Seattle Seahawk and Florida State Seminole, Walter Jones. How you doing, Walter?
I'm doing just fine, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much. I see you grew up in Alabama. How did Alabama not get you and Florida State end up landing you? Was it more money or?
I always joke with people all the time. People ask me that all the time. How did I get Alabama? I always say Florida State's check was bigger, and it's just a joke that I use, man. But at that time, I think Florida State was, one of the dominant teams that was playing, and I went there on a visit, and I said, hey, this is where I want to play my college ball at. So I was going to do whatever it takes for me to get there and play at Florida State.
I was listening to a radio show yesterday, and they were joking about Eric Dickerson. They said when SMU was recruiting him, A&M was also, and A&M gave him a Pontiac Grand Am. He took the car and went to SMU, but I don't think it was a Grand Am. It was probably a Trans Am.
It probably was, man. But stuff that was going on. But Florida State didn't. It wasn't about offering anything or giving away anything. It was just that was the school I wanted to play for. I was a fan growing up, 'cause like you say, coming from Alabama. Alabama was the team that everybody loved. So it was when I went to JUCO. It was hard because I had an opportunity to still go to Alabama, and I had to stay where I thought was a better opportunity for me to get into the NFL.
I would think a lot of schools would have come after a guy who's 6'5", 320. Yes?
My coming out of high school, I was, I think everybody has a story of, not doing as well in school, so you kind of try to find something at that point. I was just trying to find something that could, I had a high school coach that came in and kind of got me on track and kind of told me that, he kind of took me around to college games and stuff. And I kind of, figured out this is what I want to do, coming from a small rural town, not having that much, you see football and you think, okay, I can be pretty good in this, or I got the talents, or I got the potential to be good in it. So for me, I just decided that this is something that I want to pursue. So I kind of put all my marbles in one basket and say, hey, this is what I want to pursue. But at that same time, before I got into football, I wasn't doing that good in school. So school wasn't something that was important to me. So once I got into football and realized that, I had to get my schoolwork, I had, put some stuff, the things that was behind or that didn't help me out, that when I should have been doing my work, I wasn't doing my work. So that's why I had to go the junior college route. So for me, my recruiting I really didn't get the true feel of, I had to do all my recruiting. I had to do all my videotapes and send out all that stuff to teams and let teams know that I was out there, because I wouldn't have been playing my senior year of football. So what happened was that I had to go to the JUCO route, and after that, my recruiting stuff started back over because they found out I was from the state of Alabama, and I had already said that I was going to go to Florida State. So at that time, going to JUCO, the recruiting started all back over. So it was fun then.
What was Bobby Bowden like to play for?
Oh man, he's a hometown favorite. So for me to get a chance to play for a great coach like that, man, it was fun. He was very family oriented, where he knew everything about your family. But at that time, Florida State had became a big powerhouse. So, at that time, it was more of, his assistants that was relaying to what he wanted his team to be like. So for him, it was more him just getting to know you as a player, and you go out. It was more, now that you think about it, being in the NFL, it was more like the way that it was preparing for how the NFL, in the NFL, you don't see the head coach as much as you see your assistants and the guys that are relaying the information down to you, and you have to put it on the football field. So at that point, you was kind of getting that pro feel of how things are done in the pros.
What was the transition like? I assume Aliceville, Alabama is not a major metropolitan area. So to go from there to junior college to Tallahassee, what was that transition like?
Oh man, at the time, my main focus was on football. Like I say, I went on visit to Tallahassee and stuff. So being in and going to other colleges and going to major college football games. I like coming from a small town. I figured, okay, this is my way out. This is something that I want to do. This is something I want to be a part of. So, not saying that it was a lot different. It was more people, and you meet all types of people. So for me, that was something that I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be a part of a big time school playing football. So I did everything I could to get to that point. So the transition was more like, okay, I can't wait to get there because that's something that I had been working so hard for through high school and through junior college to get to Florida State. I wanted to be walking on that campus and wanted to be a part of the whole school life.
Who was your bigger rival in college? Was it Florida or Miami?
Oh man, that's tough. But when I was playing, it was Florida. Miami was back in the early '90s. It was Florida. It was Miami. But when I got there, it was more Florida. I got a chance to play against those guys twice. And well, honestly, one time, my first year out there, I was a redshirt. I redshirt, so I didn't get a chance. But the game was so good, and we came back and tied the game up, and just to be on the sideline to see that game, it was great. And then the next year I played, and we was the number one team going. I think they was the number one team, or we was the number two team. But going into that game, that game was so hyped, and we came out on top, and our season was over with, so we kind of knew we was in a championship game, but we were just waiting on the next team that we had to play, and Florida had went on and won the SEC championship, so they can't. And we end up playing those guys again. So, and that little, that 1 year, 2 year span, that team was the team that we knew we had to beat. We shouldn't have played them in the championship game, but those guys, kind of figured out what we was doing to them, and Danny Warford kind of showed why he was the Heisman Trophy winner. So he threw the ball all over the field and stuff, and the game kind of got out of hand pretty fast.
Yeah. What was that redshirt season like? I'm sure you're saying to yourself, I should be on the field playing, for the Seminoles, and here I am sitting out.
It was. I think it's one of those situations where I learned a lot. Just I was doing everything but not playing on the game on Sunday, so it kind of made you. It kind of humbled you a little bit and said, okay, you just wait your turn. And the thing about that was, a lot of the classes that I was taking in junior college wasn't transferring over. It was so much paperwork to do to get those classes to transfer and making sure that those classes count towards the D1 school. So once I was preparing myself to play, I was practicing every day and doing everything, hoping that I could get in the game. And then it got to about like game 6 when all my classes from my junior college had cleared. So the best, we sat down with the coaches, and the best thing to do is say, hey, this is redshirt this year, and it'll be a learning year for you. So in the grand scheme of things, I think it was a situation where it helped me out a lot. So I was able to, play with, great guys every day in practice and hone in on my skills and prepare myself. So the next year I came out, I was ready and prepared and was able to go out there and play at a high level.
Did you know you were going to get drafted by Seattle in the first round with the 6th pick?
I didn't know at the time. I think when I was coming out in the draft, they came out with a Elite 6 of guys that was coming out in the draft. And once Seattle when they picked Sean Springs with the 3rd pick in the draft, I figured it was going to probably be at that time when I was sitting there with my family, I thought it was going to be I think it was Oakland. I thought it was going to be Oakland. But, then some trades happened, and all of a sudden it was Seattle. So I didn't think it was Seattle because, I came out here on a visit, and, they was showing interest, but they just didn't give in to nothing. If we at that pick, we're going to pick you, but they were the 3rd pick. So I'm thinking like, well, they already made their pick with Sean Springs. So I'm like, well, it's not going to be Seattle. So, but they made some picks and made some trades, and they was there, that number 6 pick, and right there with probably a minute left for the call was made. They Dennis Erickson called me and said, "Hey, well, how would you like to be a Seattle Seahawk?" I was like, "I would love to be a Seattle Seahawk," and they made the pick, and the rest is history, man. I had an opportunity to come and play for an organization that I love, and at that time, all I wanted to do was get in the NFL and prove that I could play at the NFL level.
Going into training camp, did you say to yourself, I'm going to be a starter when the season starts? You just say to yourself, I just want to make the team.
At that time when I came in, when I got drafted by the Seahawks, when I came in, they put me at left tackle, and they would say, hey, you're our left tackle. The only way you'll lose the job is, you don't play good. So at that point in time, I figured, okay, this is my job to lose. So I put everything into that, and I said, okay, I'm not going to lose the job. This is what I've been working for the last 5 years to get to this point. So, for them to draft me that high, I knew that they felt pretty good that I could come in there and be a starter for them. So once they gave me the job, man, I was thrown into the fire, man. I think as an offensive lineman, especially at that high a draft pick, I think the best way, sometimes they can say quarterbacks can sit a year, but I think as an offensive lineman playing at that high level, at that high pick, I think you have to be, you have to take the good and the bad with that offensive lineman and let that offensive lineman learn the system and learn the plays and learn on the go instead of sitting on the sideline and not playing. I think as an offensive lineman, you can learn so much by playing and getting, a lot of reps and practice in the game.
Those linemen were tough back then with Seattle. You had Philip Daniels, Cortez Kennedy, Michael Sinclair. Who did you go up against in practice?
Oh man, Philip Daniels gave me fits every day, man. Those guys, I think it's and Tez, those guys was true professionals. Those guys worked me every day, and was as a rookie, what I'm saying, you have to earn your respect with those guys. So you want to go out there and prove that you can play at this level. Those guys have been playing for a couple of years. For me, it was great work. I wanted to be a part of it, and this is where I want to be. So I was going to do everything I can to gain their respect and go out there and prove to them that I can play, and not even about going against them, going out there on Sunday and fighting and showing that I can fight and do things that the reason why the team picked me and wanted me to be their left tackle.
How long was it before you realized that not only play in the NFL, but you could play at a very high level that, someday might lead to the Pro Football Hall of Fame? After, playing for so long, I think for me personally, I think around about my middle of my third year, going into my fourth year, I think that's when for me, I think the blessing for me is that I was able to be with one offense for like 10 years. So that made everything a lot easier for me, A lot of times, the game plans for me was, hey, block the defensive end. So that made it easy for me to go out there and say, okay, I know I can play this game. So now all I have to do is study the guy that I'm going against and do everything I can to take this guy out of the game. So that made my game plan easy. So all I had to do was go out there and focus on that guy. And not saying that, that was a tough job at sometimes, but, as a player, you want that competition. You want to go out there and shut a guy out. So that's kind of like where things started to open up for me. And I wanted to, you have some great guys that was playing the game at that time. If you go back and look, from like, probably what, 96, you can go back to probably Anthony Munoz, where, Anthony Munoz was probably, one of the best left tackle out there that played the left tackle. When I was growing up, that's the guy that I used to watch when I was in high school that, was showing techniques on linemen, how left tackle should play the game. But when I came in the game, you had like guys like Eric Williams from Dallas Cowboys, you had Jonathan Ogden, you had Orlando Pace, and even Tony Baselli before he got hurt. I thought that was one of those guys that you could watch and say, man, I want to play just like that. I want to be consistent just like those guys. So as for me, I had a lot of guys that I could just watch and kind of watch their game and see what make them great. So that's kind of how I wanted to be. I said, okay, they go in the game and shut a guy out. So that's the way I continually kept playing my game every year. I wanted to be consistent and be the top in my game every year. So that was something that I kind of strive for every year from that point on.
You blocked for a lot of great running backs. In college, you had Warwick Dunn. Then you go to Seattle, you have Chris Warren, Sean Alexander. Did you have a favorite running back to block for?
Not really, man. I think it's a situation where if you got a good running back out there, blocking for Ward Dunn, he made your job a lot easier because he was so small. So, he knew how to set up blocks and he knew how to get behind the offensive linemen. And I think as a running back, if you got a great running back, all they want you to do is to block those guys in front of you and get him to the safety. And then if he can make the safety miss, most of the time, he can make plays. And you think about all the running backs that I block for, you want to get them to the safety as an offensive lineman. That's what you want to do. You want to get him to the safety or get him to the unblocked guy. And most of the time, those guys can make those guys miss. And so you go back and look at film, you can see those guys, they're not getting touched until they get to the secondary. And as an offensive lineman, that's what you want. You want those guys to get to the second level. And once those guys get to the second level, those guys can make a lot of yards and make a lot of plays.
Oh, I forgot Ricky Waters. That's
exactly. You know what I'm saying? Ricky Waters was like, probably more a vocal player that, was that loved his offensive line. I'm not saying the rest of those guys didn't, but, just to get that guy in when I came in there, a guy that was very physical and understood the West Coast offense. So he came in and, we ran the ball. You still, like I said, you get those guys that you get them to the second level, get those guys to those safeties. They could make those guys miss. So it made your job a lot easier because you knew if they got past off the defensive line, those guys can make plays and make a lot of yards.
Was there any difference blocking for a Ricky Waters as opposed to a Sean Alexander?
Not really. You know what I'm saying? I think it was a situation where, Sean was a guy the same way, guy that, you get him to the second level. He was kind of cool or witty, knew how to, make guys miss. And, he knew how to get to the end zone, for a guy that, when we got inside the 20 or something, he knew how to get in the end zone. So he wanted to score touchdowns, And as running backs, that's what you want. You want to run the ball and you want the ball in your hands. So there never was I never looked in the backfield and tried to see what running back was in a huddle or nothing like that when I was playing. I knew that those guys could go out there and they understood the offense and knew what we was trying to do. So for me to see those guys, in the offensive line, when we go on a run game to understand the blocking and know what we're trying to do, and they come out there and they put it all together and stuff. So that makes you feel good to want to block for those guys.
How did the culture change in Seattle when Mike Holmgren became the GM and coach?
I think he came there and showed us that we can win too, and we can be in the big games. And he said once he came in there that if you do it this way, we can win. And I think that's where it all began for the 12th man and all that. Mike Holmgren came in there and showed the city that, hey, this team can win just as well as the Green Bays of the world and stuff. So he came in with a lot of respect, and I think as a team that wasn't doing that well, for him to come in there and show us the way and show, hey, how you can be consistent and play at a high level. And if you do that, you can be in games or you can be in the hunt to win a Super Bowl. And everybody was believing in that. And so for us to get a chance to play in the Super Bowl, man, it was awesome, man, because everything that he said that if we did it right, we could play for championships, and we got a chance to. We didn't bring it home, but everything that he said to do, we did, and we had an opportunity to win a game in the end.
What were the qualities that made you so good? I assume there's more to it than just being big, because if that was the only criterion, teams would just find a big guy and put him out at left tackle. But there have to be physical as well as mental and preparation that goes into being successful.
I think it's sometimes it can be luck, and sometimes it can be just. I think you have to have great feet. I think sometimes. For me, I think that, you look at a lot of the great offensive linemen, they had this defensive mindset. For me personally, I enjoyed hanging with the defensive line guys. I was more like, okay, if I can hang out with them and I can see how they work, and then that kind of will put me into the mind frame, okay, I know what they're thinking. So if I watch them a lot, that's how I would do when I go to the line of scrimmage. I'd be thinking about my job, but I'm thinking about, okay, what would I do to beat me, or what would I do to try to beat? I always was thinking that stuff. So I think it takes a lot of, thinking and, saying, like you say, skills, and you have to be just as athletic as those guys are too. Like you say, if you're just big, but you got to be able to have the foot speed and all the physical and mental stuff that comes with it to be able to go out there and block those guys for 60 minutes every Sunday.
Who was the toughest defensive lineman you went up against?
Oh man, toughest defensive lineman. I would say, when I first got in the league, I went against like Derek Thomas. He was playing in Kansas City. Going up there, that was probably before the 12th man. That was the loudest stage that everybody feared. So, as a rookie going up there, and he's got the crowd going, and I'm sitting there thinking like, oh my God, like, this is what I signed up for, and it was amazing. But I would say Bruce Smith, and then like you say, once, my name got out there, and this guy is good, you went against great guys all the time. You can, those guys gave me a game every game, so you have to be out there and stay focused and try, your best to not go out there and be lackadaisical and give up a sack. That's part of the game. You don't want to give up a sack, but once you get let down one play, that's when things go wrong.
Now, you didn't give up a whole lot of sacks. I think the number was 23 out of more than 5,500 passing plays with the Seahawks. When that happens, what goes through your head, and what do you hear from the quarterback?
Honestly, though, the quarterbacks don't too much say nothing. A lot of times the quarterbacks will take on the responsibility and say, that was my fault. I should have got the ball out, or, I should, everybody want to be, quarterbacks always understand, how tough it is to go out there and block those guys and stuff. And, a lot of times the quarterbacks, talking to Matt Hasselbeck, once you give up a sack, you watch guys and they don't go pick the guy up. A lot of times, you talk to quarterbacks say they usually hate that. If I get beat for a sack, and then don't come and help me up or something like that. So most of the time you see linemen, once they give up a sack, they go back to the huddle because the quarterback is probably pissed because, if you got just completely physically beat and he got hit, he don't want to see the guy that got beat helping him get up. So you, most of the time, if that happens, you're like, well, I don't want to go back and pick him up after that, So from that point, so you have the mindset, okay, I don't want to be that guy that's gonna have to pick him up. So I'm trying my best to keep that guy from hitting my quarterback.
Holmgren said you're the best offensive player you ever coached. That must really piss off Brett Favre.
Hey man, I love Coach Holmgren for that. I think it's a situation where, like I say, when I played, I got a chance to be in one offense for 10 years, and so it made my game a lot easier. It made me say, okay, this is what I have to work on, or this is what I knew the offense, so it made it a lot easier for me. But I want to go out there and be dominant and be consistent at what I do. I wanted to set the standards of how a left tackle should play the game of football. So for him saying that, and for me now to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, I can sit back and I can feel good that, a young kid can look at me and say, hey, that's the way I want to play the game of football. You can go back and look at film and say, hey, that's the way I want to play. So when Mike Holmgren say that, with I don't even touch the football, that showed that I went out there and I played the game the way it's supposed to be played.
Did you ever go to Holmgren and tell him, once upon a time I used to be a pretty good tight end? You can throw me the ball once in a while.
Honestly, though, we on Fridays and stuff, we used to work the red zone and stuff, and we used to say that all the time. We always used to talk about giving me a pass, and he told me, "Man, I want you to be so good that if you're not where you're supposed to be, people are gonna know what's going on." So it was, it was always brought up on Fridays. Say, hey, I need to get a pass. But he always would say, hey, if I put you somewhere not where you're supposed to be, people don't know what's going on. So that was one reason why I never got a pass, because he said, if you go out for a pass, or if I try to put you somewhere so you can't get a pass, people are going to figure out what's going on anyway. So it was, sometimes your goodness, it can never get, some of those guys, I look at some of those guys and got a touchdown pass in the game. I'm like, why I can't get a touchdown pass? And he's like, man, if I did something to try to get you a pass, everybody know what was going on because you're not where you're supposed to be at.
When you found out you got inducted in the Hall of Fame this year, what was that like?
Oh man, it was a raw emotion. I had a chance to experience that. The Pro Football Hall of Fame. What they did this year was they brought the 15 finalists to New York City. So you think about sitting in a hotel, for 30 minutes trying to figure out if you're going to get in or not. So that was a very raw emotion because at that point you can't do anything. Everything is laid out on the table. Now you got all these voters voting to try to pick out 5 guys from these top 15. All these guys are deserving to be in there. So now you can't control it. So you just wait on that phone call. And for me and my son to sit there and get that phone call and say that you're in, and finally that everything that you have worked and did for you at that moment to get this high honor. It was very emotional for me and him. And, and it was great for the city of Seattle, man, for me to play my whole career in Seattle, to be consistent as I was, and to end my career as a Hall of Fame and a first time ballot. Those are emotions that you'll never ever forget.
Now, Seattle is known for its 12th man, that being the fans. For those of us who haven't been to a Seattle Seahawks game in Seattle, can you describe what that's like?
Yeah, I would say make sure you have some earbuds, man. This city follows this team, loves this team to death, and with the success that this team is having now, this team is built to be great for a couple of years, and the team is always, the city is always, the fans have always been behind the team. It's any other team fans, if the team is not doing good, the fans gonna let you know. But most of the time, since Mike Holmgren's here and set the kind of the standard of how the fans should be and what you put on the football field, and now Pete Carroll have done the same thing. You put a great quality of players on the football field, the fans gonna come out and support that team. So right now, coming off a Super Bowl win, it just excites the fans even more. Everybody want to be a part of it. Everybody want to be a witness to it. So if anybody get a chance to come out here and watch that, man, make sure you got earbuds, because I think they're the only fans that I know that can know. You always say smart fans that know what's going on. They understand what's going on. Most of the time when you play with teams, fans don't know when to yell or when not to yell. This team is pretty good. It's almost like, if you have somebody like Peyton Manning, I think, Russell Wilson is getting to that point where teams understand that, okay, offense is on the field, so they know to be quiet and kind of let them do their work. But then once the defense get raring and special teams get raring, these fans know when to get going and keep the noise going. It's not like where you go from play to play. They know from, kickoff to huddle how to stay loud. It's a consistent loud throughout the game.
Who's going to present you this year at the Hall of Fame?
Right now, it's my son. I'm working with him. Like I say, he was my son. His name is Walterius Jones, and he's 14 years old. And he was there to be there that night with the phone call. So I asked him, did he want to be the one to present me, and he said yes. And I think at the time, a lot of times you think, is he old enough? Is he mature enough? I think he's ready for that. And the way the NFL, the Pro Football Fighting do it is that you don't have to be they video it so they can come to the house and they can make sure that he's doing it right, and he don't have to feel like he's in front of all these people, making his speech. So I think it's going to be fun. It'll be a end of a celebration from day one to the celebration in August at Canton. So for me and him, that's going to be very emotional for me and him to come to from the hotel room to the stage. So I'm looking forward to it. I think he's looking forward to it too. So it should be fun.
Would you have liked to block for a quarterback like Russell Wilson, or you were happy that you had a guy like Hasselbeck who would stay in the pocket?
I look at both of those guys, and Hasselbeck was great at what he does, and Russell Wilson is great at what he does. I don't think he's more of a guy that just deliberately just runs around. I think he, once a play breakdown, he's pretty good at making plays with his feet. He's still trying to look to throw the ball downfield. He's not a guy that's out there running around like he's a running back. And this guy's still trying, as an offensive lineman, if you got a guy that knows how to avoid, collisions or avoid getting out of trouble, a lot of times that helps you out because sometimes, in this game you can physically get beat or a guy can just beat you off the ball. And so you got a quarterback that can make one guy miss and still make a play downfield. As an offensive lineman, you want that too. So, you look at Hasselbeck and when he played, he was great at that too, and I think those guys have both of those attributes where if they get out the pocket or they are forced out the pocket, they're not running around trying to make plays with their feet. They're there to throw the football. So both of those guys can still, make plays down the field. So for me, I would enjoy it. I enjoyed my years with Hasselbeck. He did some great things for Seattle, but Russell is doing great things too. He's going to be great for a long time. So for me, it really wouldn't matter who I play with because both of those guys are great quarterbacks. And Russell Wilson is young, but he's still making, he done won a Super Bowl. So, hey, this guy know how to play the game of football, and he know how to make guys miss and still know how to keep the ball down the football field. And that's, like I say, as an offensive lineman, that's what you want.
And you blocked for the old guy, Warren Moon, when you came in. He wasn't moving around too much then.
No, man, he was a straight pocket pass, and I think, the time that Warren came through the league, that was what it was all about being. And it still is, in the end, you hear a lot of people saying, as a quarterback, no matter how much a quarterback runs around, you got to throw from the pocket. So Warren Moon was probably one of the best at it and threw a pretty good ball. So if you blocked for Warren Moon and gave him time, he could beat any defense. So for me, thinking about that now, thinking about, man, I was in the huddle with Warren Moon. I was in the huddle with Ricky Waters. I was in the huddle with Jerry Rice. So for me, it's been I didn't got a chance to be in the huddle with some great guys, going to the Pro Bowl and stuff and getting a chance to meet all these great guys. So for me, now to end my career and be successful as I was, and now I get a chance to, get to the Hall of Fame and meet these guys and be a part of this great group of guys. It's just so emotional, man, just to see that, your career it's been great, and I can't wait to Canton and to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
So you get in a ring. You were honorary captain of the Super Bowl this year. Seattle wins. So did you get the ring too?
Man, I don't know. I'm not expecting a ring. I don't know. A lot of people have asked me that, and I don't. I think that when you get rings and stuff like that, you have to be out there and be a part of the blood, sweat, and tears, that they would say. So, if the Seahawks was to do something like that, I would honor it and appreciate it. But I'm 5 years removed from the Seahawks, and I'll always be a Seahawk. But those guys work hard for that moment, so I won't want to take that away from them. But like I say, if the Seahawks decide to do that, I would be appreciative of that. But that's I'm looking forward to my Hall of Fame ring, man. That's something that I feel like I earned, and I'm looking forward to that, and to have it. And the same year that the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, to be a part of that, to see that, to be a witness of that, so I couldn't ask for anything else, man.
What about Florida State, though? They did pretty well this year, too.
They did, man. It's been a great year, man. Just seeing these teams, teams that you played for, to go out and be, like for Florida State, this team has been trying to, this team has been trying to figure out what, and in the end, you always say, hey, it's all about quarterback play. They got a quarterback in there that can go out there and be consistent and play and get the ball into guys' hands that can make plays. So, I'm happy for those guys, man. I'm happy for Florida State, man, to be back on the map again. You know, they always every year they're one game away, or they'll lose a game that they don't. They will lose a game that they didn't need to lose to knock them out of the hunt for the national championship game. So for them to be back in that game, and the way that they won that game, you know, they was winning so convincingly this year. So for them to go into that game and had to fight in the end to win that game, that makes it more sweet. Not saying a blowout would have been sweeter, but you know, to go out there and to win it on the almost the last play of the game, you know, that was so amazing for that team, and that gives them so much confidence going into next year that, hey, you got to fight every game, and you're going to win some games eventually, but in the end, it's all about trying to find a way to win, and that's what they did.
In 13 NFL seasons, you gave up, or you were penalized 9 times for holding. Now I see offensive linemen get that many calls against them in like 2 or 3 games. Did you just not hold, or did they just not see it, or?
Man, if they don't call it, man, it's not holding. So as an offensive lineman, man, I think it's a situation where, you know, in this game, you know, as you know, referees always tell you, if you keep your hands inside, it's not holding. Most of the time, if you get called holding, it's because your hands are outside the shoulder pads of a defensive lineman. So for me personally, I tried my best to keep my hands inside. Not saying that I wasn't grabbing cloth or grabbing pads, but hey, you know, as an offensive lineman, you know, I think that's something that you have to learn how to play the game and know how to get away with stuff that's part of the game. There's no way, you know, you can go out there and not say you're not holding, because you probably could get called for holding on every snap. But that's all about working your techniques and making sure that you got your hands in the right place